Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Your Kids podcast. Today we have with us Max. Max, introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody, my name is Max Gordon. I run the Lionman School of Rewilding. I teach kids about nature and things like foraging for wild plants that are medicinal, edible. I teach kids about fire making, teach about, we try to integrate more things about anthropology and Native American culture, different indigenous cultures as well. Um, yeah, so just happy to be here. I've been working with homeschooling families since 2018.
Nice.
And we operate in the Northeast and the Southeast. And we have a growing team of amazing team that from instructors to back end people that make everything possible. So I'm grateful for the whole team. So shout out to the team.
Nice, nice. And for listeners, those who are just tuning in on Spotify or wherever you're listening at, know that Max is walking on the beach right now, South Beach to be exact. So hey, it's definitely a sight and it's beautiful outside, of course. But that is awesome. And know that my girls are gonna have 21 questions for you when they see you at the expos because they love all that you do. Oh my gosh. So how do we get here? How do we get to like, you know what? I'm gonna take my talents and share my skills with others. How do we get here?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. I mean, I guess it's like there's a long story and a short story, and I guess it's still unraveling. But I guess I grew up in like luckily I grew up in like an kind of a quiet community outside of New York City with some roots in agricultural roots. Kind of grew up on this pond. I used to do a lot of fishing, just hanging out with friends by the pond and learning how to make fires and cooking hot dogs all day during the summer. Just with my neighbors playing outside. My mom would kind of joke about it, but she would like lock the door in the summers and not let me come back in until dinner time. And I guess went to Boy Scouts and did that. And then I don't know, there's different like stages, different chapters. One of them was driving through one of the towns that I grew up with and just seeing some deforestation. A forest was clear cut and could just kind of see like the raw earth exposed, and it really just like I could still see it in my head, my mind today. Which then led into me learning about environmental science, learning about like domestication in general, domestication of plants and animals, and kind of led me down a rabbit hole where I ended up studying and minoring actually in indigenous science at SUNY ESF in Syracuse, New York, where I had some indigenous mentors, and which led me to then studying in Central and South America. Got to see some traditional peoples living in ways, and that was a wonderful thing in my life. After that, I traveled to Maine to study at the Maine Primitive Skills School, where we lived in tents for a few months and just studied with different teachers that came through, learning about everything from herbal medicine to, how to survive just with a knife and different awareness techniques, like different things being blindfolded in the woods and in the dark, and learning about different Native American teachings that really center around earth stewardship. So right now, currently, I'm actually about to graduate, get my certificate in to be a certified Waldorf teacher, which I'm really happy about. And yeah, we'll see where that leads me now with the school. Just really proud of where the school is, and just trying to get more now into obviously reach more students. Just trying to be like the integrator where conservation and education and kind of where those two meet.
Nice. So you're taking it back to like the roots, like before all this technology, before all of this, like, all the advancements of everything. You're taking it back to what we can do without it all, like with our hands.
With our hands, it's a weird thing. I guess I'm still digesting it. The one thing I've been kind of excited about is that I started to blog more, writing more, which has been like a real process to like kind of challenge my own thoughts, get my thoughts on paper and see, does that actually make sense,
Yeah.
So that's kind of these broad topics, right? We have like these broad topics in society, so um, you know, there's a lot to talk about because most things that eventually boil down to kind of land, and culture and community and food. Like there's such a it's such like a PowerPoint, like a topic that so many different things come and meet to. So something that I'm thinking about, kind of heavy in my heart right now, like what's happening in the Middle East. It's kind of touching me and making me challenging my own beliefs, and kind of rethinking also what's happening here on this continent. So it's happening before my eyes, for sure. So
Indeed. But like it seems like a lot of people are recognizing the need to go back to the roots of growing our own food, being able to sustain ourselves without so much outside work being done, right?
yeah, the food system is so important. I think that's where it began for me, is like with foraging, gardening, organic gardening. Um, how do you grow healthy food in your environment? How do you yeah, and that could look like vegetables or fruits or animals. So I spent also I didn't say, but I spent some time for farming in Vermont, and living up on a farm there, which was amazing, and kind of getting closer to my calories, um, which I feel really lucky about. Yeah, so kind of I feel like primitive skills, survival skills, often don't talk enough about farming, um, because there's an idea in rewilding where we're not supposed to be farming, but we know that traditional peoples, of course, procure food through foraging, through farming. So even our whole idea of hunting and gathering, and how gathering doesn't actually mean agriculture, that's a whole topic in and out of itself, where it's a rabbit hole, because it actually can include farming, small scale farming or large scale farming, but it might not look like the ways we think about it today. So when like scientists look at cultures, like for example, they're just discovering things in the Amazon, whole cultures in the Amazon that we're just discovering now, and questioning what even wild means, quote unquote wild. So it speaks to me, I think harkens back to these quote unquote primitive technologies, are actually very advanced, and we actually don't know a lot about them. And even if we did, it's hard to recreate it. And that speaks to me, not using the word primitive. It has been used in the wrong way by early anthropologists, mostly in Europe, in North America in the 18th and 1900s. But I think there's a renaissance of the word coming, where it's not like a bad word, it's just your intention behind it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. It sounds like this is something you were just born into. Like it was just like in your nature to feel and believe that, hey, I need to know how to do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool, Jay. I mean, because it does come back to me, but then again, it's like, yeah. So I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. So I've been thinking about, every day I just try to do something new, like try to work on a project, whether it's a stiff and stone tool, or going to work in the garden, or something I could do every day. And then, by the end of the year, you can look back and say, wow, I did so much this year, So I have actually in my calendar some dates set aside for just me to go out in the woods alone, So that's just a thing that I'm kind of committed to myself, because, the best way to learn is to teach. But all kids know that, with homeschooling kids especially, kids know when you're lying, or kids know when you don't have the experience that you say you do.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was just trying to live up to that, in terms of, being, actions speak louder than words,
Indeed. So you take time to go and sit in the forest and say, hey, what can I conjure up? What can I do out here?
Yeah. I mean, I encourage a lot of, in the beginning, at least, if you're on your like rewilding journey or nature connection journey, it's just like observation, getting outside and studying doing just sitting with a plant or sitting next to a bird feeder or just going to a favorite tree and just tuning in, you know, kind of trying to just let it all in. And there's a lot of things that can unfold in that. And so I think that's where it begins. And then of course, so we call those like soft skills, right? So soft skills and hard skills. Soft skills again being awareness, maybe mentality. You know, that's your number one survival skill is awareness. And before food, you know, fire, water, shelter, food would be awareness would come first, at least in the teachings I've been taught. And then it comes the hard skills, you know, fire making and how many species of plants do you know and how many different ways you know how to trap an animal. Or again in my teachings, I try not to like harm anything that I don't have to harm because I don't like to kill even any plants unless we're going to eat them. You know, so I do a lot of I guess I do like a lot of roadkill stuff. So I recently brought to a class a roadkill coyote who was killed by a car. Just a beautiful coyote. I was driving and I just picked it up and I taught the
Oh my
kids how to
gosh.
skin that coyote because otherwise that coyote just would have rotted on the side of the road and the kids wouldn't have learned how to make leather. That's not going to be polluting because most of our leather industry comes from India, where our pollution is actually being shipped off somewhere else, so we don't have to see it. So a lot of these teachings are, you know, teachings of biodegradable, you know, using things that are biodegradable and inherently sustainable.
Oh wow. I'm like, when I tell you my girls are gonna love you, they are going to love you. Like they
That's great.
are, they talk
Thank,
about camping all the time, and I'm just like yeah, I'm for it, but I'm not for real because just
yeah,
yeah.
it's raw. You know, this could be itchy. It could be there's insects or there's you know you things that get uncomfortable. You get. I guess I'm not saying like don't enjoy your you know don't enjoy the comforts of life. Someday when I build my own house and my own homestead with my friends and family, I'll have those. I'll have those present. But and to some capacity. But we'll see in terms of what capacity that means. But um, you know, there's a funny story. Like one of my mentors from from SUNY ESF in upstate New York, he used to tell me, you know, if our and he was he's a Tuscarora, which is one of the tribes of the Haudenosaunee in upstate New York. And he would say to me, you know, if our ancestors, Max, if we had our ancestors using, if they had a gun, they would use that gun too, you know? So it's kind of like humanizing it. It's like, it's not putting things on pedestals. It's not trying to, I don't know. I try to avoid the extremes, though the extremes, it could be helpful sometimes. Not like, you know, othering the extreme. But I think there's teachings and everything, you know?
Of course. So are you able to start fire without a lighter?
Matches? Yeah.
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 Oh,
It's
that's dope.
yeah. There's yeah. One of my teachers used to say, he would say he still says, I'm sorry if I interrupted. Was that the end of your question?
No, you're fine. Mhm.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead. Yeah.
you know, he says it's funny because a lot of hunters don't know anything about foraging or don't know anything about plants. Meanwhile, the reason why that animal is probably in your environment is because that plant is there. You know, maybe that plant is in season, maybe that nut tree is producing nuts in this time of year. That's why that animal is there. That's why you're able to hunt it. So he says he also, you know, he says a lot of survival skills. They have a deep knowledge of plants. So you know, we even know that indigenous peoples throughout time and space were using so many different species of plants. Like today, we only use something like 30 species. We only eat 30 species of plants a year. You know, if you could think about, you know, in the average hamburger, for example, you have your bun, you have your lettuce, you have your tomato. But for example, the Cherokee in the Carolinas were known to eat over 300 species a year, consume
Wow.
consume over 300 species a year. That could be in food or medicine. Um, but when it comes to fire making, back to your question, you know, there's different plants that have different gifts for fire making. Like, depends on what kind of fire method you're talking about. You know, there's different fire making sets. You know, you have your bow drill, you have your hand drill, you have your pump drill, you have your you can use bamboo for making fire. There's different kind of methods for making fire. There's even iron you could use to make fire. So again, there's a place. It's like it's such a rooted teachings like this, like these plants and animals and minerals. They offer so many different gifts, and it's like we've forgotten so much, you know. So
Yeah.
that's real. And so I'm really, I think my passion is plants. Um, and so that's kind of where I come from. Yeah, you know, like if you can even think about like Arctic people, like different Inupiat, Inuit peoples of the high Arctic, people in Greenland, they were also consuming lots of species of plants. Um, Even more than they call it we call it the SAD diet, the standard American diet, which I was noting was usually eats around only about 30 species of plants a year.
Yeah.
So I teach the kids a lot about foraging. That's like um, kind of where I'm at right now. And so being in Florida right now, I lived here for a year teaching here in Florida. That's where I met my other instructor. And it was a challenge, you know. One of my best friend's godfather, he grew up in New York and in Hawaii. And he always told me, you know, it's a great thing to have exposure to different environments. So he spends 6 months of his time in Hawaii, 6 months of his time in New York. And then, you know, that way he's getting exposed to different plants and different environments. So it's been a learning curve learning about the plants down in the tropics. But again, it's been such a beautiful gift. I really, my body loves the sun and the ocean. So I'm really, really thankful and grateful for that.
Nice. Yeah, no, you speak on the medicinal purposes or just the different type of species of plants there are that we're not tapping into
Yeah.
because of the lack of knowledge or forgetting, you know, not necessarily as far as our ancestors go and whatnot, because they've always been there, right?
Mhm.
But we got so programmed to get away from it. And it's like, you know, like, oh, I could pop a pill for this, I could pop a pill for that, as
Mhm.
opposed to going back to the plants and earth in general, which has
Mhm.
always been there. Like I always think about the fact that like, okay, television hasn't been around that long. Um, that type of medicine hasn't been around that long, but all these plants and things that have been growing, they've always been here. Like this, you know, nature has always been here. Everything else was an idea from someone that constructed and created and like I guess simple a lot. I'm trying to make up a word, but simplified. Simplified
Mhm.
our way of living. So they kind of made things more convenient, so to speak, I guess. But in that convenience, it kind of hurts us too. So it's
Mhm.
like a catch-20. I don't know. But my girls walk around and like to taste plants. Like they like to. I also have a friend in New York, the friend we're about to go visit in Brooklyn. She will like, she'll let you know which plants, and I love her. She's really in touch. She's a natural born tree hugger. But that's why I'm telling you, my girls would really love you. Like they love to, I know a lady, we were in Dollar Tree one day and the lady was like, oh yeah, you know, you can eat this type of plant. And she literally walked them outside and gave them a flower. I can't remember what flower it was, but they all three of them sat out there and ate that flower together. And I was like, damn, like this is what it is. And I love that for them. I love that for people in general, but I don't think a lot of people realize just how much access we have to nutrients that are right in our front yard sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love what you're doing. What's your age groups that you work with?
Primarily 6 to 12 year olds. We may open. I have work from, you know, 2 year olds to 18 year olds, but right now a lot of it 6 to 12 year olds.
Okay. And your courses are like what? Are they weekly? Is it like a 2 or 3 times a week? How does it look?
Yeah, it's happening usually once a week. And so we have like a curriculum that I've been working on, and just and then just teaching that once a week for a couple hours. Um, and Yeah, I mean that's what it's looking like right now. We have even I've been working on an online course that's actually up right now, mostly for adults and for adult educators. So that's going to be to learn more about foraging in general, and then talking about that, which has been good because I also like working with all ages. Um, but right now I have a lot of fun with the younger ones. We do a lot of exploration, a lot of play. So I think I'm more of like on the side, like during a class, I'm probably lean more on the side of freedom versus like, okay, you got to do this and this and this. However, I've been noticing starting to implement more like journaling, like how the power of journaling, how cementing that like knowledge about, yeah, well, we could certainly taste this plant, but also let's draw it, like maybe let's learn, the native word for it. Maybe let's think about some of its medicinal actions, things like that. So trying to use that as a reinforcing thing for learning, because I think about a lot of the work that like some of my teachers have done. Like one of my teachers, Stu Demont from SUNY ESF, he does a lot of work with the Lacandon Mayan people in southern Mexico. And one of the projects he had one of his students do was help the community to come up with a book about the native plants of the area and their edible and medicinal like their uses, as a way of sharing knowledge, in the community, through the next generation, because sometimes these elders die before their knowledge is shared, or before the young are ready to hear it. It's funny because I also worked with one of the Chivia tribe in Ecuador, on eastern Ecuador in the Amazon, and our my guide was named is Francisco. He also goes by, his name is Muchilala, which is, I think that's a really funny name. And he said, because I would ask him, because he'd go back and forth between the city and living in the rainforest, and you can only access that spot by plane. And I'd ask him, like, what do you prefer? And he said, hey, I used to really prefer the city, but now I really prefer the rainforest.
Oh, nice.
So that was powerful, That's like, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like, he couldn't ever go back to the city, but it made me think about kind of, obviously, the health of his people, also the way knowledge is shared. So those were kind of two things that I thought about in that conversation.
Of course. I know my kids are aware, and I used to joke that if I did not have them, I would be in the forest somewhere. Like I would prefer to be living in the forest, among the trees and everything else, as opposed to being in the city and a lot of the noise, as I call it, noise.
Yeah, it's in my life, I really hope to have an opportunity to go to Africa, to go to Australia, to go to Southeast Asia. I want to meet more indigenous peoples. Yeah, I want to find out ways how they can help me and I can help them. And so
Indeed.
I just know there's so much
To learn.
to learn there.
Yes, yes. The learning never stops. It's like no matter what we think we know, it's still only a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what there is to know.
Yeah. One of my teachers in Maine, he's like, he might know, he's like a professional botanist in the Northeast, and he's a pretty famous survival instructor, and he's like, my knowledge is like, if you put me compared to any like tribal member in a traditional society, I would be like a baby.
Oh, nice.
That's how
No,
I was.
no, he's an intelligent person. The most
Yeah,
intelligent know that they don't know much of anything. So
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah.
Can you give me a definition of foraging for individuals that are not familiar with that word?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Foraging is a way that we can procure food from our environment. And one of the ways we do that is through eating plants. And how do we eat plants? You could either, on one extreme, you could intensively grow it in a greenhouse, or you can go out into your forest or into a field and look for it growing naturally. And so that in a broad term, it's like foraging for plants is finding a wild plant. It's so funny, just in my language I'm speaking, I'm just like thinking about, okay, what does the word wild mean? What does what does untouched mean? Like, what does that actually mean? Because to an indigenous person living there 500 years ago, yeah, that was like, from an untrained eye, that looks like it's wild, but it's actually, a lot of the time, it's intentionally cared for. Like it's there for a reason. That plant is there for a reason. And it doesn't look like the way we grow food today, like in a greenhouse. And it probably would look a lot different. But it is sophisticated. It is that population, those plants are taken care of. Um, there is some intentionality there. It's not just like this barbaric thing of like, okay, let's go raid this landscape like Vikings and not have any respect or intentionality, and our IQs are like below zero, you know? Like that's what, you know, like a lot of people call like the Flintstoneization of history. It's like we're just thinking that we're like, you know, everybody just you just knock that person over the head. You know?
You come with me.
You know, like that movie with Jack Black, what is it? Zero, whatever, or something at the beginning of it. I don't know if you've seen it. It's so funny with Michael Cera. I just whenever me and my friends are just watching it, you know, it's just like makes you crack up. But it's also just like, man, this is so sad. You know?
Yes, because then people really get to thinking that that's what it is. So like that, or that's how it was.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Oh, that's how it is. You know, like for some people, you know, there are still uncontacted tribes, or there are still tribes that want to remain contacted but limited contact. They want to still practice their way.
And
So
I don't blame them.
I always try to do that, because we always tend to think of indigenous or hunting and gathering people as a thing of the past, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's right now, you know, it's right now, and hopefully in the future as well.
Of course, of course. If we leave them alone, if we leave them alone, then
Yeah,
I think it
it's
would
been
be great.
it's been interesting because I follow a lot of the pharmaceutical, nutraceutical industry, and so a lot of drugs, nutraceuticals, things like aspirin comes from willow, for example. There's a lot of cancer drugs that have come from plants that are discovered, and so in the past, a lot of the tribes that were stewards of that plant population, that unique species, say in the middle of the Amazon, that was a very exploitative process, but hopefully now that's changing with some more of a reciprocation. So whether that's exchanging money or exchanging, you know, different respect that we could give that in exchange for those compounds that actually might have a lot to do with the health of human beings, living across the world, you know.
Indeed, indeed. What are some plants that you feel people should recognize more for their benefits that they can serve in their life?
Yeah. So I guess there's a few, like there's different species, like of course each region has its own species, and even one species that will grow in one region, it might be the same species that grows in another region, but it probably has slightly different, it might look a little bit different even, and it might have slightly different like variations, of course, in terms of also when you prepare that medicine or pick that plant for consuming, and where it comes from. Because, you know, if you, for example, you might have a dandelion that grows in Central Park that's been sprayed with Roundup, or
Yes.
you might have a dandelion that grows in the mountains of upstate New York, that's away from a trail, that's pretty isolated, that has a healthy water source and healthy soil. You know, so I guess there's a lot of, you know, I'm still like there's a lot of issues, you know, in terms of like, you know, different, for example, like picking plants that grow next to the roadside, or there's things that can bioaccumulate toxins. There's a whole study of like how plants and animals and mushrooms and minerals, how they uptake toxins from their environment. So you have to be like aware of that, right? Like even in an isolated area, you could still have issues with like air pollution that's been coming over the continent, and depositing in the air, and that organism is reuptaking that into its tissue, and so you're eating that. But then again, what are the options? You're going to eat something from a greenhouse that's going to be, like the water quality isn't ideal anyway. So it's like, okay, so let's talk about really things that matter. And then we could also talk about detoxification, as a whole nother thing. But I guess back to your question about certain plants, I guess dandelion's great. Stinging nettle is one of my favorites. I'm just thinking back home right now. What are the plants? I don't know. Right now, those are two plants that come to mind: stinging nettle and
Okay.
dandelion.
Okay. And I haven't heard of the other one, the
This
stinging.
stinging nettle, yeah. Urtica, the Latin is Urtica dioica. It grows a lot in like human habitated places, like old farmsteads at the edges of fields where there's like a lot of fertilizer. Um, so a lot of runoff. But it's a great plant. The plant has a lot of different properties. The roots have a lot of medicinal properties that help with hormone health. The stems give us a lot of. They can give us fiber for making clothing. And then the leaves are very medicinal, high in iron. They're high in chlorophyll. They're high in different vitamins. Very they call it's very like a nutritive plant. It has a lot of
Right.
blood purification properties. Um, and it's one of my favorites. So I like to use it as a tea, and then also you can cook with it as well, which is really delicious.
Awesome. That's beautiful. I love what you're doing. I love that you're focusing on the youth, because that just changes the whole trajectory of like future what they're going to go to or look to as far as healing purposes.
Yeah.
I talk about my girls and how like the first thing, like my oldest was having a issue last night and she said her head was hurting. She asked me, did we have some ginger and honey? She
Mhm.
wanted to make some tea. And at that age, I think I was probably would have been given some Benadryl or NyQuil or Tylenol. I would
Yeah.
have been given something over the counter as opposed to me thinking like on my own,
Mhm.
okay, this is what I feel like my body needs right now because I know
Mhm.
of the healing purposes that it has.
Mhm.
Um, it's the same as a lot of individuals are coming privy to sea moss, which is beautiful,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so
Yeah.
nutrient filled and everything. And I'm loving how I always see the good. People always focus on like, oh, but this and this is happening. And I'm just like, but yeah, the conversations are being had though. People are
Mhm.
talking more about different methods of healing themselves as opposed to leaving it to big pharma.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
this is important.
This is really important. Yeah, I mean, I kind of we can go in different directions with that, but I'm definitely I'm definitely on the same page as you. I think there's not to say there's not place for pharmaceuticals. I think there certainly is. I used to be a little bit more extreme about it, even antibiotic use. But yeah, I mean, you got to be careful what you're playing with. You got to know you're playing with fire, and certainly plants tend to be a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more targeted, a little honestly a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit less of side effects that you can deal with. So it's a little bit more friendly to deal with. Of course, you want to know if there are certain toxicity levels and certain plants,
Yeah.
different alkaloids, different compounds, and different plants that you probably want to stay away from, unless you exactly know what you're doing, or different categories of plants like uh, in the um, in the celery family. There's things that are food and things that can kill you, and there's like, but again, it's few and far between as compared to like what we deal on a modern basis with modern society, at least. Like you just look at overdoses with pharmaceutical industry and how many deaths come from medical mismanagement and combining different drugs when you're not supposed to, and that greatly outnumbers the deaths from um, wild plants, for example.
Yeah. No, I didn't even think on like you said, the toxicities that some plants. So my friend and her partner, Dylan, he has stage 4. It's in my phone, but I'm not about to look it up. But he has a stage 4 cancer. And so she was looking up, they've been giving him soursop tea, but she was like, you can't give too much. And I didn't think of that behalf. I'm like, I sit and sip on the tea. I sip on the tea all day. But she was talking about the toxicity levels. Like if you do too much of something or you use too much of it, then,
Yeah,
it can have adverse results
yeah.
or effects. And it's just, the more you grow, really. The more the more you grow.
Yeah, I think herbalism is like a great way to get into foraging, honestly.
Yeah.
So it honestly amazes me every time I hear about different plants, and they're like, honestly, I'm learning things every day, you know?
Yes. My friend made a fire cider for me before we left New York back last year at the beginning of winter, and she put something of everything in there. I tell you, like I have a picture of it, so I can always revert back to it. It's like this, and
Yeah.
this, and this, but it was just so many, and she's just like, yes, and that cider is going to strip all the nutrients from that, and the longer it's been fermented, it's going to be stronger and more potent, and it's just. I love having friends like that. Like now you're my friend Max, so I can contact you when I have questions because I'm not trying to have all this stuff in my head and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, system overload. But I love to be able to call or a reference or go back to someone that I know is privy in this stuff and can guide me in the right direction because it's important. So I love that this is a passion of yours.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I'm kind of like type A, kind of like I need things organized, you know? So I have like little folders for every like, because in herbalism there's like so many different actions or a plant can give you so many different things and it's like it's just like I said, it's amazing, So anytime, Jay, every time you have any questions, if I don't know the answer, I'll direct you to someone that might. So
oh yeah, you're definitely in the directory now, sir. Look, you are definitely in the directory. So I appreciate that. And I definitely need to hook you and Marilyn up. Like y'all gotta connect because she's in Brooklyn. So y'all have to meet each other
yeah, for sure.
and have some great conversations because I already know like y'all will definitely probably just go back and forth with the knowledge that y'all have and the passion because of the passion that you have for it. So it's really dope. But I love that you are bestowing all of this into our youth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's like, it's like you could die with all that knowledge in your head, then what happens to it?
Yes.
So I was like,
Yes.
that's a real responsibility. I think that I feel, someday I would love to write a book, and it's like they say, you should, only write a book if you really, really need to, if you have to. It's like sometimes I really honestly have felt that. Like I feel like a deep responsibility to sharing this stuff. So
Oh no, I was gonna say that's what they say. Only do it if you need to. No, everyone I feel because of me being a writer, I feel everyone
oh
has a
nice.
book in them. I've written a book. My friend Marilyn, who I was just sharing with you, she actually is having. That's what we're going to New York for her book release.
Really? Oh, what is the
Yeah,
book?
she
What's
wrote
her
a
book
book.
about?
It's called Vulnerable, Honoring Your Gut. And
Really?
talks about the hypothalamus and all this. Like I'm telling you, y'all will connect. Like she talks
Okay.
on the endocrine system, like
Yeah.
everything. Like she just talks about honoring your gut and the things that you need to do to make sure that you're a balanced individual. And
Yeah.
it's really dope. But yeah, no, you have a book in you. No, it's not if you need to, yes, you need to. Yes, yes. Like you said, you all the knowledge that you have, just your story in general. People benefit from your story, whether it's learning from you as far as the models maybe to go about, or learning from you the things not to do. And that was my story. A lot of mine was shared on the aspect of learn from me. Don't do what I did. like like do something different because this like it
Yeah.
hurts.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I've taken a lot. And I feel like I can respect what you're saying, don't do that. Or I also feel like, a burden has been laid on me and like I feel like I feel like God has done that for me, like because instead of doing it to other people, like kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it's a heavy thing, but I feel gifted that I was able to help other people by experiencing certain things.
Of course, that's what it's about. Yes, like you experience it so others don't. Like know, a lot of our elders always would share different things with us, and we kind of brush it off as, oh, okay, they're just talking. But then, like you go through your own things, you're like, so and so said, don't do this. But I just had to learn that lesson on my own, and it's like
Yeah,
instead of you learning it that way, learn it through my experiences and grow
yeah,
from that because you're still going to experience whatever it is that you're destined to experience on your journey. However, the way that you handle it, the way you maneuver through it, the way forge through, like it's all important because we always have choices. That's the thing.
yeah, yeah. It's like I don't know about you, but like I feel like I have a lot to live for.
Yes. Yes.
So
Oh, definitely. With what you're doing, I already know. Like your voice needs to be heard. Your voice needs to be magnified. And a book would do that, Max. Just saying, like I'm a big advocate for
that's
people
so
writing
sweet.
stories. Like you have to. You have to.
That's really sweet. Yeah. Please let me know when, then again, when that book, maybe we can meet up. Maybe I'll bring my girlfriend with me and we can go together.
Oh yeah, when you headed back to New York?
I'm gonna be back in like on Tuesday.
Well, the book releases on Sunday. That's when the party is.
Oh
But
no.
I'll be there for a couple of weeks. So let me know. Like maybe we
Yeah.
can meet up and go into Prospect Park. That's one of her favorite places. I love Prospect Park. I loved it in the fall too because it was really pretty. The leaves changing. I love that time of year. I'm not a fan of winter, but I love fall. I love because of how it looks, the aesthetics of it. But
That's nice. And
me.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. I got you. Yeah, yeah. So I guess it comes back to the children, right? It's like, okay. I mean, it comes back to us, and then you know,
Yeah, the
the set.
difference that we're trying to make, like what you're trying to leave, your legacy, what it is that you're trying to leave behind. Because like what are you going to do with all the information you have? Like you said, how benefiting would it be for you just to die with it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I kind of reckon with that, like being a gatekeeper, right? I don't like. I don't need to do that, you know. So
Yes.
I think it's something I need to. I'm just like meeting and just trying to know that the world is abundant. You know, everybody gets their needs met. You know, in a perfect world, and just trying to do things out of a place of abundance. You know.
Yes, of course. Where do we find you? Where can we find the wild nature?
Well, I have an I'm on Instagram, I have my website, my Facebook, YouTube channel, TikTok. I think I'm active on Twitter. I don't know. And we have a I write me and my couple other instructors. We write a blog monthly. So working on a newsletter. I just wrote an article about titled "The Forest Was Clear Cut. Now what?" You know. Actually, it's something like the forest was clear cut. So what? Recently someone said, "So what? The forest was clear cut." Or, so what? We do this to nature. Like, so what? You know, so what? Yeah, like let's think about it. Let's talk about it. Like let's talk about it.
Yeah, the conversations need to be had because accountability is everything. People always like, I'm a big like, don't litter in front of me because I'm gonna say something about it. So, but then you talk to people about littering and they'll be like, oh, well, look at all the other trash. Look at all like, oh, it's just this little piece of paper or whatever the case may be. And it's just like, well, be accountable for what you're putting out. Like, don't look at the other trash and be like, oh, well, since they threw all this other trash, my little trash ain't gonna. Like, no, be accountable for the part that you're playing in all of this. So accountability is really big, a really big piece of us. And the more that people take accountability for the roles and the actions that they play in sustaining our world that we live in,
Yeah,
and making it better for our young people, we want them to have something that's beautiful still, right?
yeah. Even more beautiful than what we found it. I think
Yeah.
that's where it's at. And so, but yeah, thank you for doing the work that you're doing, Jay. And I
Of
support
course, you
you. And
likewise. And I'll make sure we have all your descriptions of all the links that we can reach and
yeah,
delve into all that you offer. I'm really excited. What's three things that you would share with parents? Let me think on the level of, I guess, foraging. Like, what's three things that you would want them to take away from this conversation?
let me put my little ocean view so everybody gets a little ocean vibe.
Yeah.
Um, Three things that you should take away. I think eat more wild plants,
Mm.
climb trees,
Oh.
and laugh more each day.
I love it. I love it. All of it will keep us youthful. Yes.
Yeah.
Climb those trees. My back probably needs look, see me moving around. That's probably what my back needs right now, me to climb a tree. My oldest is like, do we need to start back doing yoga in the morning? Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you for your observation. But yes, thank you. Thank you, Max. Thank you for all that you're doing. Keep being wonderful. Keep sharing and spreading the knowledge. Keep changing minds, like changing, reprogramming us, restructuring us in general. You are offering a different way, even though it's a natural way and something that we've been doing to a lot. It's different. So I appreciate you for that work.
Thank you so much. But sorry, Jen. I will. I hope you have a great, wonderful, great and wonderful, and amazing rest of your day. And looking forward to meeting you in person.
Of course, of course. Thank you. And for all that are listening, tap into Mags, learn something, like teach those children something different. Teach them how to survive outside of their iPhones or outside of Wi-Fi.
As the Lenape say, which I was learning some from a language keeper and who recently passed, Karen Moskash. And the Lenape say, see you later. They say, Lepitch Canal. Lepitch Canal.
Okay, okay. And I'm going to say homeschool your kids. All right.
Peace,
Have a beautiful day.